Chapter 214 Love at First Sight, Love at Second Sight. What could he do by leaping 2 meters into the air? Hikato immediately gave them an answer. The soul thruster behind his back erupted with strong light, propelling him forward with bedazzling speed. He wasn't surging forward with this rapid motion, but diagonally upwards instead. He was already in midair when 2 enormous wings from a flying type soul tool extended behind his back. The radiance of soul power burst forth, and he appeared in the sky above the female students in no time. The wings began to change shape at this moment. They shifted forward speedily, and became like the surface of an umbrella as they circled around Hikato's chest. Light was released downwards, a little weaker than before. Hikato used this propulsive force to hover in the sky, and his nimble manipulations were extremely impressive. Watch out, everyone. Hikato's hands began to move as he spoke. He was tall and robust, so he was dense and clumsy to a certain extent. However, his hands displayed unnatural agility as black metal lumps flew out from his hands and dropped directly into the water. There were several hundred of them. What are those? Every single young woman thought at the same time. With Hikato's previous performance, the girls saw him as someone who was both straightforward and extremely reckless. They subconsciously assumed those things to be some powerful explosives, and even if they weren't familiar with soul engineers, they knew that they shouldn't come into contact with the things soul engineers tossed out. Almost all the young women reacted the same way. Everyone leapt up. 17 figures soared into the sky, while the black metal lumps dropped into the water one after another. But nothing happened. Hikato chuckled, and he pointed downwards with his finger. A single beam of light tunneled into the water, and a magical scene appeared immediately afterwards. The water's surface suddenly lit up, and several hundred pillars of light burst out from underneath the water, piercing through the lake's surface, instantly covering all 17 girls. What attack is this? The girls weren't sure. However, they didn't feel threatened at all. The speed of light was indescribably fast. Some girls who reacted fast enough unleashed their defensive soul skills, while other girls who didn't feel threatened at all were struck by the beam of light while they were still shocked and surprised. The pillars of light didn't represent any threat at all, and didn't do anything to their bodies. However, there was a gentle repulsion force. 3 hats. Of the 17 girls, besides those whose hats had already been lifted, 3 more bamboo hats were blown away. He's such a liar. He was pretending before this. Hanruro was the sharpest, and she reacted at the first possible moment. Hikato had been setting this up ever since he had pretended to want to use a Class 7 soul tool against them from the beginning. This was the reason why he made the girls leap into the air at the same time as he threw out those metal balls, instead of defending themselves against the soul tools he had tossed out. He had managed to achieve his goal, even though nobody knew how he did it. The pillars of light carrying an airflow were shot out from beneath the water. Hikato chortled in midair, and another soul cannon appeared on his shoulder. Before the girls could react, he fired his cannon. This cannon didn't have a specific target. Instead, he relied on the powerful recoil to fly backwards rapidly. This soul cannon was used as a soul thruster, and not only was it extremely quick, but it could be used to fly backwards, so there was no need for a soul thruster to be strapped around his chest like Huo Yua had. Huo Yua wasn't the only one who had improved in the 2.5 years at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Hikato didn't reveal much from day to day, but his skill with soul tools was one of the highest among all the students. Hikato. Fanbu shouted angrily. The cannon shell Hikato fired was coincidentally launched in their direction, and even though it landed in the water several meters away from the boat, it still caused an eruption of water and mist. Shanjuojuo laughed heartily and said, "This fellow is becoming more and more mischievous. He must have been influenced by Bei Bei and Shusanchi." Bei Bei's face was already starting to turn black from anger at what Hikato was doing. Then he heard Shanjuojuo's loud and bright voice, and his face turned even blacker. He glared at Hikato with even more vengeful eyes. Shusanchi felt even more lost and wronged. This isn't my fault at all, but I'm still blamed anyway. Kato has been with Yuao over the past 2 years. What's that got to do with me? Hikato returned steadily to his leaf. The recklessness and clumsiness from before having disappeared entirely. He chuckled as he dropped down and waved at the girls before him, but his eyes were fixed on Xiao from beginning to end. Xiao was initially a little astonished when Hikato made his move. She met his passionate gaze, and her face began to heat up, so she lowered her head. However, a bald black head began to sway in her mind, and she felt as if she could see the same person from 4 years ago on the stage during the Continental Advanced Soulmaster Academy Soul Dueling Tournament. The same person who gave everything he had. 2 years have gone by. How has he become even darker than before? If Hikato knew what Xiao was thinking, he would definitely reply with tears trickling down his face. "Dear, it's nighttime. Won't we all become a little darker than usual?" No matter how Huo Yuao and Hikato had accomplished this feat, the two of them managed to remove 8 bamboo hats in total. Of the 17 girls, less than a third still had their hats on, but this included the second girl from the left that Huo Yuao had been watching from the beginning. The bamboo hat on her head still seemed as stable as ever. The rest of the first segment was much faster than before. The male students came out one by one, and everyone displayed their skills and abilities. Some people tried to play cheap tricks, but perhaps Hikato had given the girls too strong an impression, and it didn't end well for them. It didn't take long before 2 more dropped into the water, and after the first segment, only 36 male students were left from the original 39. There were 3 more girls who still had their bamboo hats on. One of them was the girl that had caught Huo Yua's attention, the one who had a 100-year soul ring, and a 1,000-year soul ring right afterwards. This was greatly disappointing, as he would be able to judge better if he could see her appearance. After the first segment, the inner courtyard students were roused, and their emotions completely worked up. Huo Yua was in the first row, and he could acutely feel the eyes all around him. Everyone had passionate and fiery gazes. Most of the guys were watching the girls of their dreams. Of the girls that had already revealed themselves, Jiang Nanan was still the prettiest, and her enchanting looks almost made everyone else look bad. However, everyone knew the perennial entanglement between Shusanchi and Jiang Nanan, so most of the guys didn't think about her at all. In the end, Jiang Nanan had never showed feeling to any other guy, including Shusanchi. They were going to switch positions next. They would be rearranged according to the number of bamboo hats they had removed in the previous round. Huo Yua was mercilessly placed first with his tally of 5 bamboo hats. Bei Bei raised his voice and said, "We are moving into the second segment. After the first round of getting to know each other, the next round is for the girls to express who they like. Therefore, the second segment is called Love at First Sight. The rules are simple. Every girl will receive a switch, which is used to control the soul lamp beneath them. They will turn on their lamps for the guys, and the guys will continue into the subsequent segment as long as they have at least 1 lamp lit. If a guy doesn't have a single lamp at all, then he will have to regrettably remove himself for the evening." Huo Yua vividly remembered that Bei Bei had told them that the second segment was the shortest. However, it was an important test for the guys. No matter how powerful you were, or how outstanding you thought you were, you would immediately forfeit if not a single girl kept her lamp on for you. There were many more guys than girls after all, so this segment was meant to simplify the situation. Huo Yua was at the front, and he was the first person to face this important assessment. Please give it some serious thought. See God's fairies. You will have 1 minute, you have to be sure. Let me emphasize once more, if you don't leave your lamp on for any of the 36 guys, then that also means that you are giving up this blind date, and you will have to leave this area of the Sea God's Lake. The girls naturally had their own plans. They seemed exceptionally calm as they stood out there above the lake, and nobody knew if they already had someone they liked. 1 minute quickly passed, and Bei Bei continued the event at Jiang Wasan's signal. Alright, the second segment, Love at First Sight, shall begin. First, the Sea God's fairies will leave their lamps on for Huo Yua. During the second segment, leaving your lamps on for him doesn't mean you will have to choose him in the end. You can give him a chance as long as you have a good impression of him, and you can also give yourself this chance. I trust that he will pay attention to the girls who leave their lamps on for him. Begin. Huo Yua would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. He stared at the 17 girls in the distance, and could clearly feel his heartbeat speeding up. His mind was a complete blank at this moment, and no matter how good his judgment normally was, he had no idea how many girls would leave their lamps on for him. 3, 2, 1. Bei Bei began his countdown, and suddenly a single golden lamp was extinguished. Huo Yua focused his eyes on the one who extinguished the lamp. Wasn't that Wu Feng? There was an indifferent look on Wu Feng's face as she raised her chin haughtily in Huo Yua's direction. Bei Bei smiled as he said, "All right, it's over. 16 lights remain. Good start, Yuao." Huo Yua only noticed the lamp that had been extinguished. He suddenly realized that the other 16 girls, including Hanruro and Wu Ming, had actually kept their lamps on for him, which was something he had never expected would happen. It was clear that during the Love at First Sight segment, both the Snow Lady and his own exemplary performance had given the girls a good impression, and only Wu Feng had extinguished her lamp eventually. Next, we have Hikato. Get ready, See God's fairies. Bei Bei continued with the segment, seeing that Huo Yua had passed. Huo Yua could feel his second senior brother immediately getting nervous not far from him. Hikato's eyes were wide open. He glanced towards towards Xiaoxiao from time to time, and his large fists were clenched tight. Beads of sweat even trickled down from his temples. This was only the second segment, but this segment was enough to prove whether Xiaoxiao had a good feeling about him. Begin. Along with Bei's exclamation, Hua Yuao felt as if his eyes had gone dark as many lamps were immediately extinguished. Hikaitu's situation was completely the opposite from Hua Yuao. The aiming he did with the Class 7 stationary soul cannon took many points from him, while his tall and robust frame along with his dark skin didn't really fit the girl's idea of beauty. Don't extinguish everything, please. Hikaitu howled softly under his breath. Fortunately, 2 lamps remained after most of the lamps were extinguished. One lamp belonged to the enchanting Jiang Nanan, who flashed a faint smile in Hikaitu's direction with a tinge of encouragement in her eyes. However, whether Hikaitu could see it from so far away was another story altogether. Hikaitu felt his entire body turn soft and weak, and his shirt was completely drenched with sweat. This moment was like a desperate life or death fight to him. The other lamp that remained besides Jiang Nanan's lamp belonged to Xiaoxiao. Xiaoxiao's head was lowered at this moment, and she didn't look up at Hikaitu, but even at this distance, Hua Yuao could see that there were 2 dashes of red across her pretty face. Nanan has such a strong sense of loyalty. Hikaitu couldn't but exclaim in admiration. Hua Yuao chortled and said, "Why didn't you praise Xiaoxiao, second senior brother?" Hikaitu wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "I'm nervous. Yuao, what should I do?" Hua Yuao forced a laugh and said, "I'm nervous too. I would rather fight an epic battle instead. Truth be told, this event is really making our hearts beat faster. I'm a little better, as I don't really have a target, and you're feeling more anxious and nervous because you do. Relax, second senior brother. I can tell that Xiaoxiao's face is blushing, and that means she's probably embarrassed. That's still a good thing in the end, and at least she has kept her lamp on for you. That means you still stand a chance. Yes." Hikaitu nodded his head vigorously. It was clear that Xiaoxiao keeping a lamp on for him had greatly boosted his self-confidence. The event continued, and the girls were exceptionally cruel and savage. Hua Yuao and the Snow Lady managed to obtain 16 lamps, but the people who came after him didn't even get a third of the lamps, even though their situations weren't as bad as Hikaitu's. Very quickly, it was Shu Sanchi's turn. Shu Sanchi was the last in the first row, and the 2 rows behind him were almost entirely comprised of guys that hadn't achieved anything at all in the first round. Hikaitu was nervous on his first appearance at the Sea God's fate, but Shu Sanchi was equally as nervous. He stared passionately in Jiang Nanan's direction, and it didn't matter to him if all other 16 lamps were extinguished as long as Jiang Nanan kept her lamp on for him. Shu Sanchi, love at first sight. Begin. Ding, ding, ding. Perhaps the girls knew that this guy's only target was Jiang Nanan, or perhaps it was because he had played dirty in the first segment, but the speed at which the lamps were extinguished was even faster than Hikaitu. The lamps quickly disappeared until 2 remained. One was Xiaoxiao, and the other was Jiang Nanan. Just when Shu Sanchi heaved a sigh of relief and a smile appeared on his face, Jiang Nanan decisively pressed the button in her hands with a swoosh, and the pale golden lamp underneath her was immediately extinguished. The only lamp that remained belonged to Xiaoxiao. The smile on Shu Sanchi's face froze, and his face turned ghastly pale. He even shuddered a little. "You're so cruel, Nanan." Shu Sanchi shouted agonizingly, but he stabilized himself in the end. On the other side, Hikaitu asked Hua Yuao nervously, Yuao, why did Xiaoxiao leave her lamp on for third senior brother? What's this about?" Hua Yuao was rendered speechless momentarily, then said, "Second senior brother, you're confused because you're too concerned and you think too much. Why do you think fourth senior sister left her lamp on for you before this? Naturally, it's because we are one family, and we should support each other. It's the same for Xiaoxiao. Do you think she can bear to watch everyone extinguish their lamps for second senior brother?" Hikaitu was relieved, but he still muttered under his breath, "Sanchi is a little more handsome than I am." Hua Yuao turned back around and decided not to bother with this guy who spouted nonsense anymore. Shu Sanchi barely passed this round, but the guys at the back weren't nearly as lucky. There were too many guys and too few girls. After all, there were more than twice as many guys, and this situation meant that there were bound to be many guys who would be made to forfeit at this stage. The lamps continued to be extinguished, and when love at first sight finally came to an end, there were only 24 male students who remained. The second round alone wiped out a third of the male students. What made Hua Yuao a little surprised was that many lamps were extinguished for Dai Huadin, but Wu Feng ultimately kept her lamp on for him so that he could remain for the next round. When he saw this, Hua Yuao couldn't help but wonder if they were in cahoots from the beginning. Xi Wan Yu's situation was a lot worse. When he left the scene, he was still shouting, "Fatties have no rights. Fatties have no rights after all." Not a single lamp was kept on for him. The second round had come to an end. The 24 male students were rearranged once more, this time into a single row, as there were not that many left, and they faced the 17 girls in the distance directly. Jiang Lisan was the one who spoke this time. "I'm sure everyone has obtained a little understanding of each other after the past 2 rounds. We shall now proceed into the third segment, love at second sight. This time, the girls have to pay attention. You won't be able to choose as casually as you did in the second round. Once you make your choice, you will have to be responsible for it. Every guy will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, and you guys will come to me once you've finished your introduction to tell me the number of the Sea God's Fairy that you like. Once all the introductions are complete, the girls will go through another selection round, but this selection will represent your final choice. Every girl can only choose once, and you can't regret your choice. Once this selection is over, we will begin the fourth segment. All guys, pay attention. You're allowed to display the ability that you think is the most powerful while you're introducing yourself, and you can also introduce your own cultivation levels and whatnot, as long as you feel that your introduction will be enough to attract the girl you like. I will switch up the order this time, and it will be decided by drawing lots so that we can be fair." Bei stepped onto a water lily leaf and gradually floated towards the male students. He was holding some numbered sticks in his hands, and he carried out the lot drawing from left to right. The girls on the other side weren't idling around either. Each of them now had a number on their chest, while they also switched positions. The girl that Hua Yuao was watching who still had the bamboo hat on her head had the number 2. The lot drawing of quickly ended. Hua Yuao's luck was average. He was number 11, and his position was towards the middle. The first few and the last few in the third segment were at a disadvantage. The first few to go out wouldn't have experience, while it was easy for the girls to become fatigued and tired towards the end. Chu Qingtian, the 6-ringed agility type Soul Emperor that had been standing beside Hua Yuao during the first round, was the first to go. Jiang Lisan announced, "All right, the third segment, love at second sight, shall begin. To put on a good show, boys. This is your best chance to attract the Sea God's Fairy's attention. Don't let this opportunity slip from your grasp. The student with the first numbered stick, step out. Remember, your performance will take place along the lake surface between the guys and the girls. The rules are the same, and you will be considered forfeit if you drop into the water. Thank you, eldest senior sister." Chu Qingtian acknowledged, and he wasted no time at all as he soared into the sky. Lightning circled around his body, and he arrived on the water's surface in a flash. "Greetings, Sea God's Fairies. My name is Chu Qingtian." He announced his name when he was still in the air. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 2 black soul rings sparkled at the same time. He rotated once in the sky, and his third soul ring lit up. Countless streaks of lightning flickered, and his body immediately disappeared while only sounds remained in midair. "I'm 27 years old, and my martial soul is the Berserk Lightning Panther. I'm an agility type Soul Emperor, and my soul power stands at rank 67. I am confident to say that I'm one of the fastest amongst the inner courtyard students. Even though I'm not exceptionally outstanding, I have a sincere heart. I have already made my decision before my participation in the Sea God's fate today, and if any Sea God's Fairy is willing to take me in, I will lay down my heart and follow you for eternity." The lightning bolts crackling through the sky suddenly congregated as he spoke, and came together to form an enormous heart-shaped lightning bolt. His body flickered, and he leapt out from the heart-shaped lightning bolt. He blew softly, and the heart-shaped lightning bolt flew towards the girls in the distance before it eventually dissipated in the air. He twisted in the sky and came before Jiang Lisan with another flash of lightning, swiftly writing down the number of the girl that he liked on a piece of paper in her hands. Afterwards, he jumped back into the air and returned to his water lily leaf. Chu Qingtian had displayed his speed and control throughout the entire process. His movements were like the rolling clouds and flowing water, and there weren't any kinks, drags or drops at all. Exactly 1 minute had passed when he returned to his water lily leaf. His face wasn't red when he reached his leaf, nor was he out of breath. He turned around and then bowed slightly towards the girls with his right hand across his chest. Of course, not all the girls approved of his performance, but despite this, Han Ruoro whispered to Wu Ming, "This fellow is so generous with his love. He'll definitely lay down his heart forever if you're willing to take him in. Mina, you have to be sure." Wu Ming blushed faintly and said, "It's all your fault. You just had to bet with me, humph." Chu Qingtian had no idea what was happening on the girl's side, thus he just stood there proudly and figured that his performance had been pretty good. The second student came forward. Dai Huabin had been the one to draw the second stick. Dai Huabin wasn't as fast as Chu Qingtian, so he decided to rely on his ability to maneuver his body to ultimately reach the girl's side. He released a deafening roar and a powerful layer of white light erupted from his body as he used the white tiger's shield. White fur appeared all over his body while his frame simultaneously became quite robust. His body then soared forwards with a flash of white light. The white tiger's shield transformed into a layer of white light that covered his body and allowed him to barely drift across the water's surface. He was nowhere near as elegant as Chu Qingtian had been, but everyone present was intelligent. They could tell that attacking on water wasn't his forte. He was a battle soul master. His strengths lay in head-to-head battle. Hello everyone, my name is Dai Huabin. I'm 17 years old and I'm a rank 57 assault type soul king. My martial soul is the white tiger. That's it, thank you. Once he finished his sentence, he simply spun back around and leapt back onto his water lily leaf. He didn't even report a number to Zhang. This meant that there wasn't a girl that he liked in particular. His performance couldn't even be compared on the level as Chu Qingtian's. It was too outrageously simple. Who are you? Shot a glance towards Dai Huabin, only to realize that Dai Huabin was also looking at him. There was vigorous belligerence in his ice-cold eyes. Who are you? Knew that Dai Huabin did have someone in his heart, and that person was Zhu Lu, who he could unleash the martial soul fusion skill, the world white tiger, with. He's probably only participating in the sea god's fate today because he wants to stir up trouble with me. However, even though Dai Huabin's introduction was simple, the girls' reactions weren't. Dai Huabin, Xu Wanyu, Ning Tian and Wu Feng had entered the academy quite recently, so the inner courtyard's older students weren't that familiar with them. The few seemingly simple numbers that he'd said had made him the center of attraction. He was 17 years old, rank 57, and his martial soul was the white tiger. Everyone present was a talented soul master, so they naturally understood what these numbers meant. With his current cultivation, he was very likely to reach rank 60 before he turned 20, and prodigious soul masters who could reach rank 60 before the age of 20 were ultimately bound to formidable title duo, as well as probably eventually become transcendent duo. One's ability was one of the most important considerations for the inner courtyard's girls in their search for a partner. It wouldn't be very good if their future husband's cultivations ended up inferior to their own. After Dai Huabin, several other people displayed their abilities. Some showed their dazzling soul skills, while others simply walked across the water, but everyone's performances were spectacular. They were all roughly between 25 and 35 in age, and most of them were soul emperors and soul sages. Hikaiju was number 9, while Huo Yuao was number 11. Shu Sanchi wasn't as fortunate. He was number 24, which meant that he'd be the last to introduce himself. Soon, Hikaiju's turn arrived. Next, Zhang Lisan's tender and alluring voice echoed across the lake surface. Hikaiju cleared his throat and took a deep breath. He then forcefully suppressed his excited emotions, but didn't make another astonishing or bewildering performance like before. He tapped lightly on his leaf with the tip of his foot, and a layer of light immediately appeared around his body. He looked a little like the Dai Huabin had, and he used this protective barrier to drift across the water surface. However, this wasn't a soul skill, it was a protective soul barrier. As he floated within the protective soul barrier, the soul thruster behind him released a faint glow as it propelled his tall, muscular body towards the girl's side. Once he reached them, he spoke in a loud voice. My name is Hikaitu. It's a very silly name. I might look a little old, but I'm actually only 19. Teacher saved my life and brought me here to Shrek Academy. It's thanks to him that I have a chance to stand here today. I'm a soul engineer, and I'm a rank 62 auxiliary type soul emperor. I'm only here for one person. I'm extremely nervous, but I know that if I don't confess now, I won't ever be able to forgive myself. I'm here, Xia Xiao. I like you. I've never liked a person the way that I like you in my entire life. I lost my family a long time ago, and I've even lost most of my memories of them. However, it's clear to me that someone will always be the most important person in my heart. And that person is you. I truly like you. Simple, direct, and straightforward. This was the solution that Hikaitu had come up with. His head remained lowered from the beginning to the end of his speech. He didn't dare to look at Xia Xiao, but his voice was determined and his fists were clenched tight. However, his dark face was a little red and swollen, and there were enormous beads of sweat dripping from his forehead. The entire lake became quiet once he finished speaking. Of the 9 students that had gone up, only Hikaitu had confessed his feelings for a girl in his introduction. He'd insisted on this choice, and had no regrets. Hey, you're going to hit us. A sudden voice jolted Hikaitu, who'd been moving forwards due to his soul thruster and his head lowered this entire time. He looked up and immediately realized that he was about to run into Han Ruo. Sorry. He hurriedly shut off his soul thruster, his body swaying a little when he did so. Fortunately, he'd released a protective soul barrier so that he wouldn't fall into the water with it active. Otherwise, it would have been quite hard to say the results. Han Ruo stared at his daft and clumsy action, and for some reason, she felt a wave of envy and admiration surge from her heart. She smiled towards him and said, keep it up, big boy. Okay. Hikaitu subconsciously acknowledged, before quickly recovering and staring deeply into Han Ruro's eyes as he said, thank you. Han Ruro didn't know it, but this simple sentence would end up saving her life in the future. Hikaitu glanced carefully towards Xia Xiao. However, Xia Xiao didn't dare to look at him. Her head was lowered and her tiny hands were tied into a knot before her. If she were to stick out her 2 index fingers right now, her actions would probably appear identical to the little snow lady. What should I do? What should I do? This is so embarrassing. Xia Xiao's mind was a complete mess right now. 1 minute is up. Bei reminded Hikaitu from a distance. All right. Hikaitu cut a sorry figure as he activated his soul thruster once more and retreated back the way he'd come. Zhang Lisan smiled and said, so that means you've chosen Xia Xiao, right? Yes. Hikaitu nodded repeatedly before frantically turning around and returning to his leaf. Xia Xiao, Han Ruro called out softly. Xia Xiao looked up. Her pretty white face had as red as a tomato. If Hikaitu was here to see up close, he would have definitely said, I love to eat tomatoes. Han Ruro giggled and said, don't be shy, little sister. Girls have to be more courageous, especially when faced with good fortune like this. We have to be brave and grasp it firmly in our hands. The truth is that tall, dark guy. His looks are definitely not worthy of you. The redness on Xia Xiao's face receded, and a little displeasure had appeared in her eyes. She wanted to dispute Han Ruro, but Han Ruro continued before she could. Even though his looks aren't worthy of you, I can feel that his feelings are true. He's persistent, and if a person like him has recognized the girl of his dreams, then his heart will never change. You'll definitely be happy if you follow him. Certain words were at the edge of Xia Xiao's mouth, but she swallowed them down in the end and lowered her head embarrassingly. However, this time, there was a tinge of sweetness in her eyes. The 10th student introduced himself, while Huo Yuao looked at the sweaty Hikaitu and gave him a thumbs up. Huo Yuao exclaimed in admiration. That couldn't have been better. Second senior brother. Hey, was my performance really alright? Hikaitu stared at Huo Yuao anxiously. Huo Yuao nodded heavily and said, at least you've spoken your mind, and let Xia Xiao know about the feelings you have for her. No matter what the outcome is, the fact that you were able to say all these things in front of so many people means that you've already succeeded. As Hikaitu gasped for breath and wiped the sweat from his face, he said, That's good. It's almost your turn, little junior brother. Good luck. Which girl have you set your sights on? Me. Huo Yuao's eyes shifted subconsciously to the second veiled girl, but he shook his head and said, I don't know. Huo Yuao's mind was a lot calmer and more composed than before after the previous few segments. Controlling one's emotions was a lesson that the ultimate soldier plan had taught him, and his self-control had continuously improved as he grew older. Hikaitu had taken the same lessons, but he was too close to the issue, thus he couldn't control his emotions well, as this was simply too important to him. Huo Yuao actually envied his second senior brother. He thought to himself, if that's Wang Gong's sister, and she looks just like the goddess of light, will I have an epic romance where I give her everything I have? Just as he began to speculate about this in his mind, Hikaitu suddenly said, It's your turn, Yuao. Huo Yuao was jolted back to reality. 1 minute had already passed. The student before him had completed his self-introduction in the love at second sight, and was currently returning to his own water lily leaf. It's your turn, Yuao. Indeed, Bei's call could also be heard. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.